NARF was founded on the principle that there was a lot of legal work that needed to be done on behalf of tribes, and most tribes didn't have the resources to pay for attorneys to do that. So NARF was founded as a 501c3 nonprofit, so we could assist tribes at no cost and provide legal representation to them, or legal advice, or in some cases put projects together for them. And our goal here has never been to make money, but was to raise enough money to help people out. And so it's not like we're in it for the money, because we're not. You take our attorney, we have 16 attorneys on staff. Most of our attorneys would probably be multimillionaires if they belonged in private practice, but they choose not to, because we have some of the best attorneys in the country that work out of here. And again, as a nonprofit, your salaries are limited, but they're dedicated. They believe in what we're doing, and most of our staff has been here. Some of the staff has been here since 1970s when we were founded. Other staff people have been here 30 years, 35 years, 28 years. I'm one of the newer ones. I've been here 24 years. So, people come in and they're in here for the long haul. And so money isn't necessarily a driving force here. We all have to make a living, but that's not why we're here.
Okay.
And, our main purpose is to force the United States to live up to their treaties that they made with tribes. Well, the history of indigenous people in this country is never taught anywhere. It's not taught in any of the schools. They don't want to teach it. They want to keep that hush-hush, because I think if people really knew the history, they'd be very ashamed. When the United States, first put the boarding school process together, their reasoning was the Indian wars are getting too expensive, and it's costing us millions of dollars every year to fight the tribes. So how can we get rid of them without actually killing them all off? So they came up with this grand idea in cahoots with all the churches. Okay, let's start with the children. Let's remove the children from these tribes, from the parents, from their grandparents, and let's teach them how not to be Indian. Let's strip them of their culture, their language, their ways, their songs, their everything, and turn them into Americans. And that's what they proceeded to do. So children were forcefully taken from their parents. Forcefully, had no choice. At one time on the Hopi reservation, the Hopi elders resisted, and they just said, no more, we're not going to let you take our kids anymore, and they resisted. Well, they sent the army in there, and all those Hopi elders were sent to San Quentin. They were imprisoned for refusing to let the government take their children. And the children were taken away from the age of 5 up until they were in their teens, something 17, 18 years old. So they didn't have any contact with their parents, with any of their relatives, with their tribes, and it was constantly beat into them that being Indian was bad. Practicing your dances and your songs and your spirituality was wrong. And this was just pounded into their heads. So when they got to high school and they finally completed, they were released to go back to the reservations. Well, they went back to the reservations with nothing. They no longer knew the language, they didn't know the culture, they really didn't know their families didn't know them any longer. And you compound this from generation to generation to generation. And what was passed on from these generations was what is now known as historical trauma. And this trauma has been passed on from generation to generation to generation. And that trauma has caused every kind of issue that you can imagine. And that's what we're trying to deal with at this point, is how do we rectify that? How do we cure it? How do we turn that around? And that's what we're working really, really hard on, from tribe to tribe to tribe. Every tribe is different. Their approaches to things like that are different. So we have to meet with every tribe individually and say, okay, going way back when, what is your healing process? What kind of ceremonies do you usually do to heal, especially in cases like this? How do you bring that spirit back? What kind of songs, I guess, do you have, or healing ceremonies do you have to bring their spirits back? And because that's what's missing, their spirits.
Yes.
So you have to go from tribe to tribe and help them establish a healing process. And with that is kind of like what Mandela did, a truth and reconciliation thing. We're also meeting with the federal government, because the one thing the federal government has never done, they've never admitted to this. Even though it's all out there, but they've never admitted to it. So we have to get them to admit to what they did. And we also have to go from church to church, get them to admit what they did. And then start healing from there. Because they have to heal too.
Yeah.
It's, healing isn't just one-sided. It has to come from both sides, both directions. And so, we have our work cut out for us. And we figure at the minimum it's going to be minimum of 10 years to even get close to doing this. And it's probably going to be a generational thing. It's probably going to take generations to actually bring healing and bring people's spirits back. Each tribe has their medicine people. They have the healers. And, it could be a man or a woman. Depends. Most tribes, there are some exceptions, still have those people. Where that knowledge has been passed on from generation to generations. Most of those ceremonies are still alive. In some tribes there might be less people practicing them, but in some tribes they're alive and well and healthy. And you see more and more younger people going to that side for healing, for not only what we were talking about, but for other things, for illnesses, for whatever. I still use ceremonies. Here at NARF, we have healing ceremonies here all the time. For our staff, for people in the community. We bring in medicine people in here, and we conduct healing ceremonies here. Or at other people's homes. We conduct, not that we do it, because we don't, but we bring in people who do it. And again, depends, sometimes things are intertribal, where, let's say we have a Lakota medicine man doing a ceremony. Well, it doesn't mean that ceremony is just for Lakota people. People from other tribes take part also. Because everybody understands the importance of healing. And whether it's healing from cancer or any major illness, or sometimes loss of life, there's ceremonies for all those things. There's ceremonies for death. After a year of a person's passing, there's what they call the wiping of the tears ceremony, where at that point you have a ceremony to let go. And so you have ceremonies that are just about for everything, and they're all different, and but they all come down to a basic point: is they provide spiritual guidance and healing to the people. The powers for a lot of the medicine people come from the cosmos, come from the stars, from the black holes. Most tribes believe that's where we came from. We're star people. People that I know, and ceremonies that I'm the most familiar with, their knowledge comes from the black holes of the West. The place of the thunder beings, the thunder people. And that's where all knowledge comes from. That's also where ancestors reside. So you look at the black holes out there. And this is true for a lot of indigenous people throughout the world. Some years ago, I met with an Aborigine from Australia who was a keeper of their healing and their star knowledge. And they too believe that all their knowledge and their ancestors reside in the black holes. Tribes have their own, each tribe has their own star knowledge. And the star knowledge, they have constellations and different from Western constellations, but constellations nonetheless, where they connect stars and planets. Well, that guides them in their ceremonies. All these things are extremely important. And the thing is, that knowledge still exists out there. And it's strong. Very strong.
No, I know he said it. Look at it?
No.
Most of us here prefer going to a healing ceremony than we would a doctor.
So, yeah. Okay. All right.
Some years back, I was very ill, and I had a super, super bad case of dengue fever. The worst kind that you can get. And there was nothing that the doctors here could do at all, nothing. I just had to either live or die. Worked my way through it, had some traditional ceremonies, and I got well. And I'm a true believer. We have healers that come in from Mexico also, curanderos and curanderas, that come in for healing, to share their ways. So these ceremonies and these healers don't really know boundaries, because there are such similarities, and there's always sharing that goes on constantly, because we know we're all in this together. Medicine people from Central America, South America come in, same thing. People from here go over there, for the same reasons, to share and to learn from one another, and to make sure these traditions and these ways never die out. And with him, I know you do a lot of things on songs, and all these ceremonies are guided by song. There's songs for everything, and these ceremonies are guided through song. That's how you get the spirits to come in. If you don't sing the right songs, they don't come. So you have to have that knowledge. So, there's songs that are sung that are more social. But once again, they're still connected to everything else. They might be social in nature. But the only songs that I know of that might deviate from that are what they call 49 songs. And those are just songs that are just made up on the fly.
Okay.
And they're usually about lost love or wanting to find love in all the wrong places. So, those songs are just made up on the fly, and it's a social thing, But even then, the beat of the drum is still very spiritual. Same kind of beat. A beat that speaks, to the stars, to the heavens. A beat that takes prayers. And these songs here, these are peyote songs. And every one of these songs has a meaning. And they're for healing. These are peyote healing songs. Peyote itself, the plant, is a healing plant. It comes from the earth, and it has all these medicinal properties to it. So, it's used for a lot of healing. It's been used for thousands of years for different types of healing. People with arthritis or any kind of bone disease or muscle diseases, peyote is used for that. Not to ingest, but to make a paste, and you rub it. It's like an ointment. All these plants have kind of almost dual purposes, and you can separate the physical healing from the spiritual healing. You can't have one or the other. You have to have both. You know, if you don't have spiritual healing, you're not going to have physical healing. You know, it's critical that you have both.